Hi everyone, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. If you're watching it on the internet or listening to a podcast version of the show, make sure to subscribe so that you get notified when a new show is released. And if you'd like to find links to videos or MP3 files, just go to miamighostchronicles.com, and you can also submit any eerie experiences you've had at the Submit Your Story tab. Also, hook up with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where you can find information not only about new shows, but also about monthly free merchandise giveaways. So get comfortable, enjoy this new episode, and just imagine it's a dark and stormy night where not a creature is stirring, not even a mouse. And if a creature is stirring, you hope it's a mouse. Hi everybody, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. How's everybody doing today? Well, even though you're not gonna be seeing this show right away, anyway, belated happy holidays and a happy new year to everybody, because right now we just went through the New Year's, and I know there's some of you out there that for all the excitement and the build up and everything, it's like, okay, thank God it's over. Life can get back to normal, even though it's a lot of people take off time from work or whatever. You really don't rest. You end up, it's almost like you need a vacation to recover from the holidays, but it is what it is. But anyway, here we are, New Year 2019, a lot of good things happening. And to kick off the new year, I have started out with a super interesting guest that I am so excited to have brought on the show. And this is a gentleman by the name of Elliott Fults. Now, he is a well-known psychic native to Chattanooga, Tennessee. He's the author of Chattanooga Chills and also the owner of Chattanooga Chills Ghost Tours. Now, he's the author of several books, one of them titled Chattanooga Chills Scream Louder, including the latest release, which is called The Darkest Corner, Tales of Necrophilia and Necromancy, which we're absolutely going to be talking to Mark about. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask him what I ask all my guests, which is, first of all, welcome him to the show. And Mark, I mean, before we get to that book, because we already had a little talk before we started airing it, I don't want to cut to it too quick. Did you ever have an experience with the paranormal, considering you were a psychic? Was this something that happened in childhood, or was it when you were an adult?
Oh, yes. Well, my mother's mother, was extremely psychic, so we kind of had that going in our family. It was kind of like a thing, they would acknowledge it, but you didn't promote it, it was, but I was very sensitive and very psychic. And then when I was a teenager, I experienced a ghost that they hadn't told me my grandmother's house was haunted. Oh. And when I was 16, I got the crap scared out of me by these two ghosts. Because it was a little Southern Belle type ghost woman who would run through the house, and then this really scary man, would come through the back door and run through the house and after her. And my grandmother had been seeing it, and I didn't know it, but she thought that somehow the woman had killed this man. That he came after her and she killed him, and he was haunting the house. He was when I was little, I saw him a couple of times looking out the basement window.
Okay. And
just this really rotted, leathery looking thing with black eyes. And so that was my first exposure to real ghosts. And then when I was 30, because I'm 50, going on 57.
Okay.
When I was 30, I was attacked in a random act of violence, and I died twice. out of that experience and did the near-death thing, which it was a great experience. I mean, the death experience was great.
Okay.
But then when I came out of that, it kind of brought out all my talents because I had been able to hear and see, but I didn't know how to communicate back or how to use what I was processing, or to process what I was seeing. So after that, I just started to develop my real skills, and then I worked at a metaphysical store where we started doing seances.
Okay.
And because I just thought I could do that, and I started doing seances, and then I developed off of that. And, and then too, when I was 18, I joined a Gardnerian coven and learned how to be basically a energy technician. Okay. So I'm not just a psychic, I'm also kind of a trained in energy.
Okay.
So I kind of combined it all.
So
if that helped.
Right. So in other words, like you said, you had that ability. But
yes.
you're not the first person I've heard of that has the ability, and one of two things: either they're so scared of it, they try to shut it down, or they don't know how to handle it, and sometimes they get overwhelmed because of what they see. Like they're at the mercy of their ability.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this is a curse, not a gift. Thanks. I don't want it, because they just don't know how to manage it. They don't know how to set up boundaries. And if they go to any place, whether it's an active haunting or just residual, but it's got a lot of heavy emotional stuff going on, they just get bombarded. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I've been through that.
Yeah.
When I was younger, when I didn't know what to do with it, I shut down for a couple of years. I said, I just can't do this. Because I didn't know, I was just being barraged. I didn't know how to deal with it. But like I said, becoming an energy technician, I do meditations and I tell people, you can always imagine that there's a big radio dial. You just turn that radio down when you don't want to hear things.
Okay.
And you do, because you reset your aura. You do a little circle around you and make your boundaries, understand your energy, because your energy, your aura is kind of like your CAT scan.
Right.
And you can control that. And you can basically do a little techniques where you just turn it down, and then you don't get it's not so constant, because if you don't control it, sometimes, if they know you can hear them,
yeah,
they're going to talk your ear off,
Right.
I mean, they're going to be, look at me, talk to me, listen.
Yes.
And that's fine, but you have to be able to deal with it.
Sure.
And not expand all of your energy. So, and actually I'm doing a book on that, how to do that, called The Psychic Worm Stitch.
Okay.
To teach people how to set their boundaries, control their energy, and then later on, if they want to develop their skills, then they can do Akashic library work, which is basically just going inside of your own system.
Okay.
And because we have all of this information in our bodies, because how many people, whether you believe in reincarnation or not,
mm-hmm.
we have DNA reincarnation. So
Right.
you have all this stuff from thousands of people where you have their hair color, their eye color, but you also have a lot of their memories.
Genetic
until the point they put, yes, and they put that, up until the point they put their DNA into your pool, you've got their memories as well. So,
Right.
Which can cause deja vu and things like that. And then there's I believe in other kinds of reincarnation. But we have so much information we can dig into, but we have to know how to go inside to do that. And, but some people get freaked out and think it's a curse, but it's really not a curse. It's just you're sensitive, so you have to learn how to deal with that. It's just another aspect of life. We're just not trained to do it because we're raised in a society not to believe in our natural skills and talents.
I know you're psychic. Are you a medium? Do you channel? Or
Oh yes, I can channel to my
okay.
to my toenails. Yes, because that is something I love. Something that I developed into is I'm really kind of a free-form spiritualist.
Okay.
And I do automatic writing, I do channeling, I do all of it, and I create my own devices to do communication with. So actually I'm working on all that.
Well, because a lot of people don't realize that you can be psychic and not necessarily a medium as far as channeling. It's two different things.
It is two different creatures because channeling is you're allowing your vessel to open up and take in other information. But with that, again, you need to do techniques to where you basically make your body, you set up the boundaries so that whatever information you take in, that you can expel. Because it's like getting a virus, like a computer virus. Because everything is energy. So if you have your in pretty good order, pretty good boundaries, then you can hold things at arm's length, talk to them, you can channel. But some people just open up and whatever comes in, comes in.
Right, and I think that's where a lot of people sometimes get in trouble because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they let stuff in. Mistake.
I've had to help several people who've kind of done that, or and to the modern thing of going to the toy store, buying the Ouija board, and opening up the Ouija board.
Right.
Well, the Ouija board is made. It works. It's a spiritualist device to connect, to communicate with spirits. But people who don't respect it play with it, they'll, it's a hello and goodbye. Well, they'll do the hello, but they don't always do the goodbye.
Yeah.
And then when you've done that, I had one girl come into the store I was in, and she was really sweet and everything, but she came in one day really fried. And I said, and I could see this dead guy following her, and I said, "Where'd you get your boyfriend?" And she said, "We were using a Ouija board, and he came through, and we got scared and threw it in the closet, and now he won't leave me alone." And so I had to take her by the hand, take the board, reconnect, disconnect, and get rid of the board. But there are quite a few famous cases of, like Patience Worth, where a woman became possessed with the spirit of Patience Worth, and then she began writing incredible works of art.
Right, that she did not have the education or the knowledge or anything for.
Nothing. And she started writing these books. There was one, I think it's called Toka, that was like during the lifetime of Christ. And it was appropriate, language appropriate, everything appropriate. And when they found out that she was getting it through a spirit that had possessed her, basically, then the literary world kind of scraped her off.
Right.
But she was doing it through a spirit who she just happened to catch. So, and all of it, it's all about learning and how to control what you're doing. And you can do that. It's just, but a lot of times what we do is we start stuff and then we just let whatever happen. And then if it ends up badly, we're scarred by that. And you just have to learn from it.
Wow.
So, but there are,
a lot of, like you said, a lot of them thinks it's a game. Okay, well, it didn't work, or it worked. Okay, throw it away, throw it in the closet. Oops. And sometimes, and I hate to say it, unfortunately, usually what's hanging out there, that they kind of like catch on, oh, this is a novice. This person doesn't know perfect. This is exactly my entrance into that plane.
Sure. Oh yeah, sometimes, because sometimes they can get in and sometimes they can't.
Mm-hmm.
But it's anytime you work, you directly call spirits. It's kind of like you're a little light on a foggy street.
Sure.
And they see that little light because they see that opening in your electrical magnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
And you're opening a opening in your electromagnetic field. And so then you're allowing whatever to come through. And so you're doing it, but you can do it, but keep it at arm's length. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. So then they end up with some pretty messed up stuff. I mean, one of my favorite stories, a witch friend of mine told me 30, 40 years ago.
Okay.
That there was these two little girls. They wanted to connect with Jean Harlow and Marilyn Monroe.
All right.
So they wanted to become like them. So the first one, connected with Jean Harlow and said, I want to be like Jean Harlow. She wanted to pull that spirit in her and become beautiful and glamorous.
Okay.
And she pulled in the spirit, and then the little girl fell over dying from renal failure.
Oh,
and
there you go.
By saying that, I want to be like Jean Harlow is dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So the witches were called in to come to the hospital. They circled the girl, got the spirit disconnected, and recovered. But, so you have to really think about what you're saying, what you're asking, what your intent is. Because if you're playing, you can sort of play, but you can do it safely without, dropping dead, from renal failure.
But and you know what, though? Also, a lot of, and this goes to for a lot of the teenagers, they don't know the reality of that. Let's say that star's life, really what it was like. Maybe it might have appeared very glamorous, but sometimes they led very unhappy and tragic lives behind the scenes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, both of those stars, Jean Harlow and Marilyn Monroe, tragedy.
Yeah, yeah. They weren't. I don't. When you look at their lives, they were surrounded all their lives by tragedy, and I don't think they were really ever truly happy. I mean, you look at them and you would think, wow, they're these starlets, sex symbols. Everybody wants them, but I don't think that personally they were really ever truly that happy.
No, and basically, and with the blonde goddesses, you had like in my period when I was young, Jay Mansfield, who was the end of that cycle, and I loved Jay Mansfield. But just, terrible, tragic, ending to, something they thought was going to be fun and exciting, and it was fun and exciting, but then it also turned on people because nobody respected them. So,
do you think that there's any truth that Jane Mansfield, from what I understand, and again, that Anton LaVey had cursed one of the I think it was the man she was involved with, or the driver, and that it was talk about being at the wrong place at the wrong time or close to the wrong person?
Yes. Well, when she was with Sam Brody, and Sam Brody broke in and was terrorizing Anton LaVey because he was jealous of his friendship with Jane. Before they had the final wreck, if you ever look at the pictures, Sam Brody's body he has a cast on because they had like 4 car wrecks before this last one.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. And Anton LaVey told her to stay away from him.
That I did hear.
He's going to die.
He told her that. Stay away from him.
And she could not shake him. And I have to say, I mean, he didn't intend to get her, but he told her to get away from him. And she couldn't. And they had like 3 or 4 wrecks. He was already in a cast from the previous wreck. And and from being... I've been at the other end of having witches who do, there are good witches and bad witches.
Sure.
And there are, there are witches and there are Satanists. That's a whole different thing. But I have seen some that did some pretty severe stuff, so I know it can happen. Um, but they had several wrecks beforehand, so
I did
she
not
just
know
put the
that. I
dog
just
there.
thought that
Yeah.
that was that one bad car wreck, which was horrific, you know.
No. If you look, I mean, if you can handle the pictures, because
I
they
remember
got a
seeing
picture
one
of
of
him
them, but
when
I mean, yeah, I can look at him, but I never looked at that. Who was the cast? He was in the cast. He had a cast.
he was Sam Brody, her boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
was in a cast, and you can see. I mean, the picture I've seen is, of course, his head's half knocked off.
Right.
But he's laying there with cast. I think I remember the leg cast. I don't know if he had a arm cast. But and then there was a 20-year-old driver. But I kind of believe that was, she wasn't the intended victim.
You know what?
But because of her getting rid of it.
I would that thing with the accidents, that would have been my my this is where I'm getting off the ride. Thanks. Bye.
Oh yeah, I'd be shaking that dude loose somewhere. I'd be saying, "Excuse me, dude, you asked for this."
Yeah.
Because I mean, because he was very, he went kind of crazy, and he was trying to control her and anybody around him. Like, Anton LaVey was this movement, and
right.
He loved Jane. He loved Jane. Actually, they made her a honorary, and she liked anything that was shocking. She really went around them because it was shocking. But,
right.
But
I know back then that was very, that was way out there.
But people don't give a lot of credence to, things like that. But, you have to respect. It's like with voodoo. I've experienced and watched voodoo work at work.
Mm-hmm.
And by very good practitioners, and so I know crap can happen,
Yeah.
So, but for him, I think, like I said, he loved Jane. I don't think he would never have done something to hurt her. It wasn't about her. It was about him.
Yeah.
So, and I think, but I think that is, but her life was so terrible at that point, she was doomed anyway, I think. So,
right.
But
I don't know why, and I hate to say it, but sometimes you see these people that they kind of like what we're talking about, like, hey, common sense dictates, get out of there or do something, and they kind of like they're a moth attracted to the flame.
Yes.
Where
they're in the way of a train.
Mm-hmm.
And they cannot get out of the way of the train.
Right.
And too, with Jay Mansfield, I think we have seen her reincarnation come and go, which I believed it was Anna Nicole Smith. She was born in Dallas the year Jay Mansfield died.
Really?
She had that blonde beauty, gorgeousness, had that same kind of thing, and they would say she was like Marilyn. I go, no, she's a Jay Mansfield. And then when she died, when Jane died, she was killed and left the children.
Right.
And Nicole and karma does weird things. So in this case, if she was reincarnated, let's say she was Anna Nicole Smith, instead of her dying first, the child died first.
Right. Yeah, because it almost makes you think that for all her problems, what really drove her over the edge was when her son died.
When her son died, she died.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think it was kind of a karma thing, and she didn't kick whatever the past life stuff was. But and then, because karma, reincarnation is you get a chance to develop past your past failures, because it's not really bad to have fail or have a problem. No. It's you learn from them. But if you're reincarnated, which I'm a reincarnated person, you take what happened to you before, try to move past it, acknowledge it, and then bring in whatever you're bringing into this life. And so, but I kind of feel I'm taking you in some weird directions here.
Well,
so
you know
you
what?
have to say no.
Well, you know what?
Mark.
It's yeah. Not talking about well, I mean, obviously we could talk about so many things, but let me ask you. Let's go the direction that we were talking about this last book that you came out with, The Darkest Corner, which I think is because part of voodoo is necromancy. Using the dead for divination purposes. But what in your book, if Mark, if you could describe what the premise of the book is.
Well, the thing that really inspired the book was the story of Anatoly Moskvin, who in just a few years ago, I think about in 2012. At the moment, my brain isn't remembering all the dates. But in 2011 or 2012, he was arrested. He had dug up the corpses of 26 little girls from the ages of 3 to 15, and he turned them into dolls.
Oh my God!
And he had them strewn all over his apartment. His parents, who were usually out of town most of the year, when they came in, they just thought he was making dolls. And he had them so disguised, they looked like weird dolls. And he was brilliant. I mean, he spoke 13 languages. He's a professional. He was like the expert on cemeteries and whatever in Russia.
And how he is a young guy?
He's not very old. I think he was born in the 60s. If I remember correctly. He's younger than I am.
Okay.
But he wanted a little girl, and not for sexual purposes. He had been raped when he was little, and he just thought sex was disgusting. But he wanted a little girl. He wanted to adopt one, and they wouldn't let him. So he went to the graves when he would be studying the graveyards, putting together the books that he was putting together. He would do a Celtic thing of laying on the grave,
right,
talking to the spirit and listening to the spirit. If the little girl's spirit told him, or in his mind told him, that she wanted to go for a walk, he would come back, dig her out, hide her somewhere, let her kind of dry out, and then take her home and mummify her and put stockings and things over them, paint faces on them, and turn them into dolls. And put music boxes in their ribs so they could sing to him. He'd sit and watch cartoons with them. He knew all of their birthdays and death dates, so he would have their birthday parties.
Right, yeah, because of the cemetery.
And he told, and at court, he told the parents, said, "You took and abandoned them in the dark. I took them home and warmed them up."
Okay, wow. But you know what? I'm surprised that no one caught on that there was something a little bit off about it.
Well, but people,
I know.
from a lot of cases I've had to do with, they don't want to get involved.
Yeah, you're right.
And his parents saw this stuff going on.
I was about to say, the parents, come on.
Yeah, but, either they didn't smell. I think what happened, there's 2 or 3 different stories about, the cops came to him to ask him about information to help them with who was desecrating cemeteries. And then they sort of figured out he was it. And they came back and were looking at the dolls, and he said, "Those are corpses," There's another story that also his parents may have turned him in because they started to smell something or realize something was off. And when you go online and look at the pictures, it's like, how the hell could you think that was a doll? But one of his most famous dolls was Olga Chartamovy, who she had been murdered when she was 10. he looked her up, found her body, took her home, and she, he had her. They always show this picture of one of the dolls that's dressed in a red outfit with the face painted on the front of her stocking-covered face. And she was really like the spokesperson for his crimes, for stealing little girls. And but he believed through science or black magic that he was going to bring them back to life.
Okay. Oh,
and it's a modern story still going on because he's in a mental facility, and they're holding every year. They're able to keep him, but that doesn't mean eventually they won't release him.
Well, because I was gonna say he never killed any of these children; they were dead.
No.
So It's like everybody thinks. I mean, what could he be charged with? Obviously, he's not, sane per se. Sane enough to kind of like pass off, but at the same time, it's not like he went and he killed them and then wanted to mummify them.
That's right. But that's like I lived in Lafayette, Georgia. Mm-hmm. I lived 5 minutes away from Tri-State Crematorium, where the guy, they, instead of cremating them, he was keeping them and playing with them, and they found like 300 and something bodies that he had been laying around. He had them posed and stuff like this. And, but he did, when they realized he did not kill them, it changed, he got in trouble. He stayed in jail for 16 years for, fraud and for playing with corpses.
Right.
Mishandling of corpses. But it wasn't, but when they realized he didn't kill them, it changed the whole format, how they dealt with it.
Right. As disturbing as it is, it's...
Yeah. And now, in one of my other books coming up, like I told you, I'm going to be doing one on funeral homes and things like that have dealt with necromancy and necrophilia. But the murderers who did necrophilia, like I was telling you, like Bundy,
right?
Some of these girls, when they would find the bodies, they'd find them in hairstyles they didn't wear, makeup they didn't wear, fingernail polish. He would go and kill these girls, go back, change their clothes, wash that, dye their hair, fix their hair, change their whatever to whatever he wanted, and then he would have sex with the corpses until they fell apart.
That is so gross, my God.
So, I'm telling you, I have lots and lots and lots of stories of that stuff right now.
Well, this last year, I don't know if you've heard, I want to say either 2 or 3 funeral homes in Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
They found some infant remains, several of them.
Yeah. One of them was like 63 corpses. Yeah. Infant bodies. And then they had a garage that was just stacked full of corpses and the freezers and then there were some, it's something, and that's actually in my funeral home book. That's why I'm covering that, because there's so much of that. And then too, there's so much of people in the funeral homes, there's so many cases of people having sex with corpses.
Because I'm trying to figure out, like, why can't you just dispose of these? But when you think of it as like, what, too much work? You try to think of it as a logical, practical reasons why somebody wouldn't. But then when you put in the angle of like, were you using these remains for something? Was it for something? Oh, that's so disturbing.
And there are some of them doing that. Some of them are like, Karen Greenlee, who's one of the only women necrophiliacs that they have on thing. She would work for a funeral home, and the way they caught her is she was taking the body of a very handsome 30-year-old man to bury, and she got to the funeral site, saw the parents, was taking him to be buried. She decided she couldn't let that corpse go. She did a donut, took off, stole the body.
Oh my God.
And when they found her, she tried to commit suicide, but it didn't work. And she had left a list of like, this long list of like 20 guys that she had had sex with that were dead. And, but it's kind of common.
It's like,
It's kind of common that this is happening. And in other countries, I mean, there's been cases of where, it's kind of a rite of passage to have sex with the corpses. So you won't be...
God, but that is God. First of all, I think health-wise, it's got to be extremely unhealthy.
Well, in Chattanooga, here's a good example.
Okay.
There's a very beautiful cemetery called Forest Hill, and in the 80s, there was a girl who was about 16 years old, buried. A couple of days later, they found her, disinterred, and she had been molested. They didn't know who did it. Well, a few days later, this guy comes into the hospital with a terrible case of blood poisoning.
Uh-huh.
And what had happened is him and his friend had done it. They had gone and dug this girl up and had sex with her and with no protection. And they got blood poisoning from the embalming fluid.
Of course.
And they both died horribly.
Oh, they died?
Oh, yeah, that was in the 80s. I mean, it was a very kind of a secret case. But they both died horribly because there was nothing they could do for them. But they got it from the embalming. And a lot of people don't think about it. A corpse is a petri dish
yes.
of bacteria and things like that.
People don't realize that the human, even when there's no embalming, the moment that the body dies, basically putrefaction. Everything. It commences immediately.
Immediately. And so these people who do this stuff, they either get so immune to it, or they probably have to be like Typhoid Mary, carrying stuff that we don't know what they're carrying.
Exactly.
But it's a very, the necrophilia is very, very common right now. And seems to be on the rise. If you look online, there's so many modern stories of it. There were antique ones, but there are a lot of just modern, people just doing this. And we were discussing that, there's a generation of kids who don't know how to relate with other people. They've been in their computers and their games. Right. And so to them, a corpse... it means somebody who's not going to reject them. They can do whatever they want. It's like a blank canvas. And there are movements, in other countries, I think it was Sweden, I may be mistaken. But there's a group who are moving to try and legalize necrophilia. And, of course, it hasn't gone through, but it shows, but to me, it's so disrespectful. Because when I think, I'm like, when you die, the family owns that body after they die.
Right,
and,
exactly.
Unless they're giving you permission to do that kind of stuff, it should be illegal. And just way, way, way out there. But,
down in the 1920s, and I don't know if you've heard of this story, down in Key West, we had that Maria Elena Hoyos, where she died of TB, and an older gentleman.
Yes, Carl Chancellor. That's actually
he kind of like basically absconded with her body for several years until her sister, because let's face it, Key West is not that big per se.
No.
And it kind of reached her ears, and she didn't want to believe it, because he had been very nice, and he had offered to even, give her this nice, because all her family, by the way, died of TB eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he offered kindly, of course, with, he had plans in mind to give her like this nice mausoleum kind of thing, and they agreed. And it took a few years before her sister became convinced that it was true that he had taken her body out, and he did one of those weird mummification that you look at that and you're like, oh my god.
Oh, what? It's in my book, actually.
Okay, there you go. Okay, that was
Elena Hoyas, because the sister heard about it, and I love the sister, because the sister showed up at the door and goes, "Where's my sister?"
Yeah.
And he goes, and he takes her in and shows her he had turned her into a plaster doll.
Right.
You know, wrapped her in wax and cloth, and then made a big plaster casting of her, or thing of her, and took her in there and said, "You can come visit us anytime you want."
Right. And it was like, huh?
And I was like, but
yeah,
and then they took the body and put it on display and took all the kids from all the local schools through to see her, and they thought it was like a love story.
I don't get it. I was like, but
I don't get it. But I did do a psychic thing where some of the cases I did try to connect with the spirits to see what condition they're in and all that. And because she has been dead so long, it was kind of like getting a phone message. You know, I tried to connect, and then I got kind of a phone message from her, and she was like, she felt a little sorry for him as a person, but she never returned his affections. And at the end, it was like her sister said, "He's a dirty old man." Click.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And that's the way it went. But a lot of people have turned it into a love story.
Let me tell you something. People don't. I mean, come on. It's just, hello.
Yeah. But it's amazing. I mean, the pictures of that. It's like, and then they said, that, I mean, it came out a lot later, but that there was a little cardboard tube put in so he could have easy access.
Yeah, right. From what I understand, the doctors that perform kind of like I want to call it an autopsy, even though they kind of withheld it because they didn't want to hurt the family. Like they didn't want to let's not make these poor people suffer even more. And I think they waited till the family had all died away.
Yeah.
Because they were back, especially back then. That was like very God. Let's make this worse.
That was scandalous.
Yeah.
That was a scandal. But too, I mean, like you said, all of her family died from TB, and I thought, well, how did he not get TB? And two, people really nowadays don't understand. TB was the AIDS of its time, because there were all these hospitals, and that's why if you go to an old TB hospital, they're haunted as crap. Thousands of people. I mean, in my family, I know one person who died of TB. I knew two other people who had TB in the 1920s.
Right.
It was basically a lot of people died from it, and it was a plague.
Yeah.
But how did he not get it? I don't understand, because he had her there. And but
I don't know if the TB, if it's once the person's died. I don't, because see, this is the thing. She was married.
Yeah.
And she lived a bunch of people in the same household. She lived basically with her in-laws, and all of them, including her family. I think that's what, unfortunately, why they kind of all got contagious, because they all lived together tightly, and a lot of them. And
yeah, and even the sister who came and discovered the body. I mean, all of her family died from TB.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I just don't understand how he lasted so long. But but when he died, they said there was because they had taken the body and hidden it. But he had another doll made up.
Right. He's like, I'm there. And that little explosion that he did on his way out, well, that they think it was him.
Yeah. So,
and I tell everybody, for those people like what you said, that I don't know how can they romanticize it. I say, You give this guy, if he would have been 20 years younger, he would have been one of those stalker guys. You know, that
Of course.
it's just that she died and he was older, but he would have been a nightmare.
He was, and the story too is kind of metaphysical because he before he had met her, he had the spirit of an ancestor who was telling him who his love was going to be.
Oh my God!
And then when he met her, he thought that was the person that the spirit had told him about. And then he thought, so, and when he got her, he was having conversations with the corpse. He believed he was dancing with her and having conversations.
He was he was like, for him, it was like, this was...
He was what?
Yeah, it was like, and I think a lot of people it's disturbing and funny if you look at it. These people really have lost such a reality. However, they know how to act kind of normal. So within society where all it is that, they're considered maybe eccentric. But I sometimes think people underestimate that.
Yeah, well, a lot of people get away with a lot of stuff. Look at Jeffrey Dahmer. So many people heard, the smell went on for months. The smell. And if you've ever smelled a corpse, you cannot mistake that for sewage. You cannot mistake that for garbage.
Yes.
And people ignored it. And people heard screams and things like that from his father. Nobody called. He got away with, it could have stopped and saved quite a few people.
Oh, sure.
But people don't want to get involved. And apparently someone knew about him and Elena. They eventually told her sister.
Right.
But who knows how long that went on.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things, like, think about it. Also, because from what I understand, she had heard about it for several years, but I'm thinking to myself, you know what? This poor lady, her whole family is either dying or dead from TB, including herself.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, what do I do? How do I deal with a guy who's stolen my poor sister's body? It's like,
Well, in the South, he would have been killed.
Yeah. Well,
they would have strung him up, or burned him out, or done something. I mean, there would have been a killing.
Of course. Well, way back then, how they had the fear was of grave robbers, either for jewelry or or for the bodies for medical. Here it's like fear of taking the body because people want to like live with it, marry it, or have sex with it. That's pretty.
It's pretty out there, but it makes sense for people who don't want to deal with people. They just do this. There was a case in Florida just last year. I think this guy, his mother, he was schizophrenic, and his girlfriend had been missing for a little while. And the mother came in and smelled something, went in there, and he had the body hiding in the closet and saying, "Oh no, that's a sex doll."
Come on.
And they don't know exactly. I mean, at that point when I read it, they didn't know how if he killed her or she died or whatever. But he didn't see her as human. He saw her as a doll.
Mm-hmm.
And all the stuff that goes along with it, he just was oblivious to. And the mind is a very bizarre thing. So I don't know. But when I started doing the Darkest Corner, you write a few stories, you run in, and you feel like you have to scald yourself, And I thought people were going to think, God, what a weirdo for writing these stories. But I'm like, you got to see these stories. There's something to it.
Now, let me ask you something, Mark. And I know that you do tours and cemeteries. Do you think any of these people are being influenced by dark spirits or some type of attachment that they picked up at cemeteries?
Do I think people can be influenced by those
Well,
things? Yes.
let's say maybe you
Yeah,
got
or
somebody that's
possessed, or
already not wound too tight. Let's say somebody that's
sure.
and then let's say they start going to a cemetery, like this gentleman that you wrote about in your book, that he was a cemetery expert,
Yes.
and they get some
Oh,
type of
yeah.
attachment that makes them
Of
start doing
course.
stuff like that.
Of course. In some cases, I believe they can.
Yeah.
In some cases, it's just their own warped psyche, but then in some other cases, it can be something darker, and it can be something more warped. And there are spirits who are very sexual.
Mm-hmm.
So succubuses and incubuses, and when I moved here to Florida, I moved into a place it's called Old Spanish Trail. It's on in the 1500s, it was the Spanish Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved in here, and usually, I like house. If it has a little ghost or something in it, that's fine. That's cool. I like character. We moved into this place and did not realize that the house behind us, a few months before we moved in, there was a house behind us where a man had died and laid there for 6 weeks. And so when we moved in, we didn't know the story.
Right.
But there was a ghost here that at night, I'd wake up and there would be this person standing by the bed, making this noise, like humming.
Oh my God.
And I thought, okay, maybe it's just an old pretty, maybe it's just an old, it's okay as long as you just don't bug me, it's okay. And but then it touched me.
Oh.
Physically.
Oh.
You could feel the hand. You could feel. It felt like it felt like a stuffed glove, sort of. It was real strange. But they touched me, and I thought, hell no. And so I thought, no. And so the next day, I pissed and fit. I cleaned this house up, set the boundaries, and got rid of it. And then we found out the guy. It really was the spirit of the guy who had died, and he just wandered over here. And I thought, and you see a lot of things where they're there, but you don't always get touched.
No.
And but they do have a corporal, kind of a corpse, energy corpse, and they can touch and they can do stuff. So there are spirits that are influenced that way. And I've known of several cases where women had spirit lovers and liked them.
Right. I've heard of that too.
But it's still, you're having sex with a corpse, But it's a different kind of corpse. Mm-hmm. So there is a sexual, sex and death are very intertwined.
Yes.
And for some people, it crosses into it. But there are cases of spiritual, sexual beings, and then there's people who have sex with corpses to bring the spirit of Azrael out and to try to do magic with the corpse. So they'll have sex with the corpse to do a ceremony. So it all gets mixed up in magic and mysticism and weirdness. And then there's just freaks, just freaks.
But you know what? I really do think, though, that for even the ones that they're just doing it for the freak, like you said, just because something in their head, just the circuit, haywired. And I do think, though, that in that act, they open themselves up. They open something around themselves, even if that's not their intention.
Well, it's very primitive. And like I said, there are people who do who do sex with corpses and then call the spirit of Azrael through the corpse. Oh. And so there is an element, and that's part of necromancy.
Yes.
So even if they don't understand the aspect of it, it is going into that field.
Yes.
So because just because it's a dead thing, it's not really a dead thing.
Right. And
when we're alive, we have our electrical system, which is, starts at the top, the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, the electrical system down your spine, which is, chakras and everything else. Well, even when you're dead, you still have those chakras are still in place. And sometimes those are spots of energy, spots that can be activated, and then people, because a lot of spirits that are discarnate, they may not go on. Sometimes they will go what they call to the dry place, which is usually like a grave. They can hibernate in the bodies.
Right.
And feed off of the material that's disintegrating, and they absorb the minerals and the mineral of the blood, the iron, and all of that, and they can still be in that body sometimes. So
yeah, they and I said to people, because a lot of people say, well, it's why would cemeteries be haunted? And I said, because if you've got somebody who, let's say, for example, doesn't understand that they're dead, all they want to do is they'll follow their body around, but they just can't get back in, but they don't want to let it out of their sight, so they kind of like follow it all over the place.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, it's if they have nowhere else to go.
Right. It's like, okay. And their self-awareness is that they still look like, they missed the bus, the part about the, you don't need that body anymore. They're still trying to why? I want to get back in there.
Yeah. Well, they want life. Mm-hmm. And if they can't get their life, sometimes they want other lives.
Yeah.
And, because most people don't have that problem. When you die, and I had 2 near-death experiences, great experiences, wonderful experiences. What happens is the light and all that stuff that you see, it's a natural process, and it downloads you into another dimensional layer. But it's connected to your system. Okay. So when you see the lights and you're dying, you're seeing the nucleus of the neuron is lighting off, and you download energy-wise through that into the system. So if you do not go through the natural process,
right,
which usually it sometimes can take immediately, or some people it takes a few days. That's one reason why funeral homes, keep you for 3 days. In the old days, it was to make sure you were dead,
right?
Because a lot of people got buried alive. But it also takes a few days for the spirit to disconnect.
Right.
And if they download through the energy level, then they just go into the natural process. If they don't, then that's what, you get little ghosts and discarnates, and they can at any time reactivate because their system, a spirit is a electromagnetic plasma. So it's a copy of whatever you were when you were alive.
Right.
And they can activate, when you tell a spirit to see the light, you're telling it to light up its neurons. And when it does that, then it can download through that energy spot. And but if they don't, then they can wander around and they can find other things to eat off of and exist for a while. And then later on, they'll break down and be reabsorbed. But until then, they can find places to go. And I know people go, well, cemeteries aren't haunted. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
I beg to differ.
Are you kidding me? It's the whole of death,
It's like,
please. But to them, a lot of spirits that are in the cemeteries, they don't see it as a cemetery. They're seeing it as something else.
Right.
They have their own reality.
Yes, they do.
So when I go to cemeteries and haunted places, you have to take into consideration, is this like you would a psychiatrist, you have to look at it, is this person so in their head that they can't let go of life, or they don't want to leave, or they don't want, or can't, or the trauma made it where they didn't realize what happened, they just woke up dead.
Right.
And it happens. It happens. And so it's very common, and each one that you encounter, you have to be able to know how to deal with them and ask, what's the problem, but there have been some I've encountered, that most of them are just people hanging around, and then there's been some that have ulterior motives. And one guy that came to my house years ago, a girl brought him over because she was worried about him. And he came in my house, and I could see this thing following him, and it looked like a burnt stick of wood, but it was a person, and they had been burnt, and the eyes were well open, and the mouth was in this big grin, and I didn't realize that when people get burned, it contracts the muscles.
Okay.
So you'll get these grimaces sometimes, or the eyelids are missing, or so it was this burnt-looking person with this big-ass grin, and I could tell it was evil. And I said, "Where did you get
You
that?"
must have been wigged out, Mark. You must have been.
Huh?
Well, you must have been wigged out when you saw that. You must have been thinking,
I was freaked out at first, and I went, I could hear his name is Daniel. Where did you get this? And he said, I got it through a Ouija board. This one he got through a Ouija board. And he didn't want to get rid of it. And I said, well, it's feeding off of you. It eventually will kill you. And he goes, well, that's okay. I like to scare people with it, not throw him out of my house. I said, that thing ain't coming in my house. And I threw him and it out.
What a dumbass.
And, but that, you never know. I mean, you know, because most spirits don't mean ill will.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are some that do. Some were victimizers of their lives, and they're victimizers, and they, you know, and some people think, well, when people die, it makes their spirit get angel wings. It's like, no. They're basically the same person sometimes. And if they were bullies and victimizers, sometimes they're the ones trying to, you know, the vehicle, and they'll find whatever they can to control. And if somebody has a damaged aura, they can just access your energy.
Absolutely.
And if I'm taking you on too many weird tracks here,
no, not at all.
Just tell me though.
No, absolutely.
We're talking everything from necrophilia to ghosts, you know.
But you know what? Because I've had some people that have told me, "Oh no, cemeteries, it's not haunted." It's like, God, yes, they are. They're very haunted.
They are. They are because, oh my gosh, you know, I mean, think about how many thousands of dead people. And a lot of people, when they die, they just go through the process, and the spirit's gone. The spirit goes, it goes into the electromagnetic bands, and it's in another dimensional layer. But there are a lot of people who just refuse to go on, or because of damage, just don't, and they'll hang around.
Yeah, they you know, but some people say, well, if you were going to haunt, why don't you go back home? And I said, because sometimes people are attached to their bodies, or because for some reason they're just kind of lost. They're kind of like
they're in a fog, and it's like people with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of thing. They kind of know where they're at. They kind of know something's familiar, but they don't know how to verbalize it. They don't know how to go on. And a lot of times with spirits, the people hang around calling to them, trying to get them to come over. Because when I was dying, that happened, you know. I mean, you see all these people running towards you, calling your name. You feel yourself pulling out of your body, and you go to them. And if you go to them, then you're dead, you know. But but your spirit is they do that to get you through the process. And even ghosts, for a long time, these spirits will try to talk to them and get them sensible and say, come on, you know, come over here. And but a lot of times they can't, because we're stubborn people, and our nature is to do what, you know, free thinking. So sometimes free thinking means I'm not going to go over there, or I'm afraid I'm going to go over there and maybe I'm going to get punished, because everyone thinks the religion thing.
Oh, of course.
It's really not. My experience is that it really isn't like that kind of thing. It's kind of, you download all your information. Your brain records about 3 million hours worth of stuff. So when you start to download, that's why your life flashes in front of you, because you're downloading and you're seeing all of it. But you don't really have the, you're going to hell thing or you're going to this thing. It's a, what did you learn? But a lot of people are afraid that they're going to die, go out over and go to some kind of hell.
Right, yeah.
Or be punished or be held accountable. And then they hide from that. And I've known spirits, I have met spirits who had no fear and terrorizing people. And when they scare someone, they get a meal. So, because you put out thermal heat and they absorb thermal heat. So, they know if they make a noise or... and then when you do that, you're feeding them.
Right, yeah, they're looking. And I've heard also that for those who have died, who really are not aware or don't want to accept their dead, and you hear about that they have their deceased loved ones come for them, and they're like, I'm not going with you, you're dead. I'm, like, why would I want to go with you? Because they still have not accepted really what happened to them.
With death. Well, when I was dying, the way I kind of came to it was you're more alive when you're dying than you are when you're alive, because when you start to pull out of your body, you feel great, but you're very aware, you're very alive. The spirit energy is very alive. So of course they're not dead. So it boggles their mind basically that, well, I'm not dead. So if I'm not dead, why, I'm not dead. But the problem is that they feel like they have to keep dead because then, people love you on Wednesday, you die on Thursday, come back and say hi on Friday, and they scream and call you a ghost. So, so it causes confusion. All the people that love them are scared of them if they can see them. And so, because of our American ways, we think the spirit is a scary thing, and it really shouldn't be. But there are aspects of it that, you do have to be careful. And in Japan, there's, when they had the huge tsunami several years ago, there were so many people killed so quickly that there are taxicabs are having problems because these people get in the cars and go, take me to this, whatever address, and the guy will go, well, they want to go places that don't exist anymore.
Wow.
And there was a great story of this girl got in a cab, gave the address, and the guy said, are you sure? It was destroyed. And she goes, am I dead? And she disappeared.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
And that puts chills on me right now. Chills on me right now.
Yeah.
But it's a phenomenon because they died so quickly, and they're trying to get somewhere. That's the famous
like
Resurrection Mary story.
Right.
Take me home. Take me home. I'm going home.
And I think also, think about it. How about those people, Mark, that never believed there was an afterlife? They thought that when you take the dirt nap, that's it. It's done. It's over. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's like, what do you mean?
Because, they just go, I'm thinking. So, but they, and that's a weird example. I've done a couple of atheists, and one of them I did have a spiritual experience with later, and they were like, you're full of shit. Excuse my language. And it's like, I'm talking to you, but you're dead, but you're full of shit,
Exactly.
And
denial.
It did no good because they were going, I don't understand this, but you're delusional. And the spirit telling you you're delusional.
Exactly.
So, so it's very interesting, but...
some of them, I think there's a lot, that some of those spirits out there, those ghosts, that it's like, well, what do you mean? It's my self-awareness is still here.
Yeah.
Even though my body is dead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, and I can see where it's very complicated because the soul that you get, the little energy you get when it comes into your body, that's very ancient energy. But when you die, that energy goes back to a source. But the spirit that you created in your lifetime, the personality, is separate from the soul. So, because it's who you are.
Right.
And so sometimes it's not the soul that's haunting it. Sometimes it's the personality separately from the soul. And then sometimes it's the spirit, the soul as well. And, you know, but we're just, I mean, we have strong personalities. So, I mean, that doesn't just die when you die.
Yeah, I know. I mean, human beings are very complicated, and I think that's why there's different types of hauntings or reasons why people stay behind, because of the nature of the beast. You know, we're complicated sometimes, and like you said, some don't understand it, some don't think it's fair, or they want revenge. I mean, just the same thing that plays out when you're alive, that you're still hanging on to those things.
You're still holding on to life, and there's no more. Your life is over.
Yeah.
And whatever you learned, that's it for this round.
Yeah.
But for them, sometimes they don't. And then two people who are murdered.
Yes.
They want understanding. They want restitution. They want justice. They want to be found, or they want, you know, but there's a need.
I want to say that for all of those, I want to say the ones that are killed, and either nobody knows that they were killed, much less who did it. So it's almost like, you know, tell my family, or this is what happened to me. This is what they did to me. Plus the person, or, you know, that did it to me is walking away without any type of punishment. And for human beings, that's a hard pill to swallow.
That's very hard. And, I mean, I've done several people who were murdered. And one of the cases I know, the spirit moved on very well. Then I've known another one that didn't do so well. It's still an unsolved murder. Even though they know who it is, they're not really going to pursue it.
Right.
But the spirit showed up to me 17 years after he's dead, you know, telling me information. And I didn't tell the cold case people how I got the information, but I took it and they understood it. Because they would have rejected it. But he showed up, you know, told me exactly what to look for. And I took the information in, and because I knew the people, and I knew him, you know, from 17 years before.
Right.
But they're still not going to solve the case because it's too involved and there's too many big people involved. It's a complicated thing. It's not easy to die. It's not easy to live, and it's not easy to be a dead person. Because when you die and you're thinking, then you're still thinking there's a way to make this work.
Right.
And then really what you have to do is go, that happened, my life is over, that's done. Now I have to go on and do something else.
Right.
And that's just not the way we are.
No, it's not. It depends. I think, again, circumstances, personality, all those things play a factor. Your spiritual beliefs when you're alive, what are they? You know, that has a lot to do with it, where, you know, if you're ready to let go, and you, like you said, whatever comes afterwards is much better than anything I've got here. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I tell you what, when you start to die, because when I was attacked and I was dying, from the process, the way you feel when you start to go is so incredible. And you understand, there's stuff you don't remember, but you start to remember when that starts happening. And you feel, these people know you. You know this place, you know this feeling, and you're going back to something that you're missing.
Okay.
And that's why when you die, if you go through that process, you go right into it because it's great. You feel wonderful because you don't have the body to deal with. The energy feels wonderful. And you feel like these people, you know these people. But when you come back, then you kind of lose a little bit of that because it's part of something else. That when I was 4 years old, I was trying to tell my mother where I came from before I was born. And coming from, and we were little Baptists, you know, and she's going, shh, 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 don't say that. And I remembered I knew exactly where I came from. I knew what happened before I was born. Right. And there was and I was going through that. And, so there's something we come from that we go back into. And it's like, you shoot out into this world, come into this, do this, and it's like, after the game, you go back to the dugout, And they say, okay, you got this, you did this, this is what happened, good for you, blah, blah, blah. We missed you, here, go on and do something else. And,
right, which is why almost everybody I've heard that has had that near-death experience, it's like they don't want to come back, in a way.
You don't. You do not. You do not want to come back. Actually, and it makes you where you're not afraid to go through the process again. And the whole thing is, it's whatever your life is that you've had, all of that information adds to the universal brain. So it's like you're bringing memory cells to the brain. So you're bringing experience to universal consciousness. So it's important. Everyone's life is important. You're bringing something anyone else is bringing. So it's a very important thing. It's just that when you deal with personalities and individuals, then you get all this other stuff going where, they're going, but I wasn't finished.
Right.
The worst thing someone can say when they're dying is, I'm not ready, I'm not finished.
Yeah. Because
and I've known people who've done that, go, I'm not finished. And that's the ones that, will have the harder time going on.
Right. They're still trying to multitask
life.
Instead of just
going with it.
Yeah, of course. And I think that also those are the personalities that they're still attached to their homes. The ones like, you've heard of these haunted houses where it's the old owner where they don't realize you don't have a body. Your ego, they don't shed the ego part of their personality, as in it's my house or my things or whatever. They want to stay and still control it or own it.
Yeah. So it can be very complicated, and but it's as a psychic, you get to go and see a lot of this stuff, but it's but out of all the people, one time this really good psychic came up to me and she had a message from one person. The only time I've had another psychic come up to me and go, I have a message from this guy named Roy. Mm-hmm. Well, Roy was my closest relative, my cousin. Her father was so abusive, horrible monster. And out of all the people in the world to bring me a message, they came up to me and said, I have a message to you from Roy.
And you're like,
I said, well, you tell him to take it. I said, you tell him to take it and stick it where the sun don't shine. And I walked off. And I said, I'm not taking a message from that creep. And he's not getting 2 seconds of my time. And because he was hideous, horrible to his wife, horrible to his children. And I thought of all the people that come to me in the spirit world. And I said, you tell him that you can take a message, but I don't want it. And I walked off, and someone else thought it was terrible. But I thought, he doesn't, no, I know what he's doing. He was trying to manipulate something. Mm-hmm. And so, not all spirits are no.
Yeah, the ones that and that everybody always wants to think that once you're instantly dead, You be just that same example you just gave, where this guy in life was really a terrible person with his loved ones, and everybody thinks sometimes that when you pass, all of a sudden you just become good and sweet.
Yeah,
Not all the
no,
time.
no. Oh, no, 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 no. I did a seance for a girl. Her boyfriend killed himself. He would have killed her if he could have,
Right.
but she wanted to contact him, and he had shot himself. But he was waiting for her. She just didn't come in time for him to shoot her.
Yeah. Okay.
And we were sitting there, and she wanted to talk to him. Well, I had all these candles lit, and she said she wanted, when I was talking to her, listening to him and talking to her, and I said, and the spirit said, this is what I wanted to do to you. And when he said that, there was 2 candle photos, and they exploded like they'd been shot.
Wow.
And I said, don't waste any more time on this energy. Don't let this energy in your life. It's better gone, because he wanted to kill her. And if he had found a way, or could have found a way, he would have been still trying to make it happen.
Right. In other words, what originally, I guess, what was he trying to do, like a murder-suicide thing, and then he just ended up, okay. All right.
And then he just, she didn't come in when she was supposed to. Just happened not to come in. And he was drinking, and so he eventually did it. But he was waiting. He wanted to kill her first.
Yes.
And she knew that. But she's like, oh, but I love him. I want to make sure he's okay.
Oh,
well,
yeah, there you go.
He was sitting there going, if this is what I would have done to you.
Exactly.
And I was like, girl,
Forget
you need to move. You need to get away from that. You need to don't be moaning.
Yes.
I'll kill you, because what they can do sometimes, that kind of stuff, then they can manipulate, bring situations to you to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Because they, it's it's complicated.
Yeah,
but no, they do not turn into angels. And the death experience is usually a very positive thing once you get past the dying part,
right.
The physical part. But like I said, some of them, if they're just not ready to go, they're just not going to accept that experience. And that's why, as a psychic, when you go, you need to know what you're going to put your hand in.
Yes.
And there's been a few circumstances where I had to go, what? Y'all don't need to be in this. We need to leave. And, screwed everybody up. Because there's some things that are just very unhealthy.
Exactly.
And we look at it as entertainment, and some of it is entertaining, and then some of it is like a disease. It can infect you and ruin your life.
Well, you know what? And I know that I know there's a lot of psychics that they don't want to go into this, and I tell everybody, unfortunately, and I understand sometimes when people are grieving and they've lost somebody that they loved very much, and they're trying to reach out to this person, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I've never heard, and I'm talking here about people like TV personalities and stuff, where their messages are always light and lovely. I've never heard of one saying, no, you know what, this person is still not at rest. You need to either say prayers or a mass or whatever.
Yeah.
They never, it's always, and I'm thinking to myself, come on, sometimes not everybody that's gone on is made that transition. And as a matter of fact, if they're discarnate, they are more desperate to make contact or to say whatever it is, good, bad, or disturbing, than the one that has actually gone on. But you never hear of that. Everybody, all the ones that you see on TV, they're like, oh, the person's good, and they want you to let you know that they're okay. And I'm thinking to myself, come on. There's got to be people out there that, like, one, either they were not really good people, and they still are trying to, for lack of a better word, screw with whoever was left behind. Others that they're just unhappy, they don't understand. I mean, a number of things. And when that medium makes a connection, it's like part of me wants to say you shouldn't deceive those loved ones into telling them that that other person is okay. You need to tell them the truth, which is whatever it might be.
Well, that is one of my things. I feel like I'm a Dutch uncle. If I would tell it like it, I see it.
Right. Like what you just said about that girl that the boyfriend would have taken, that you kind of told her, hey, you need to stop this right now because this guy, he hasn't got a pair of wings on. And if he had a chance
no.
to take you, he would.
Yeah. If he could have killed her, he would kill her.
Yes.
But because she loves him, like a lot of people do. Yes. I'm like, I just love him. I don't care that he beat me. Right. I love him. Yeah. Well, they're still doing that. And it's like, are you nuts? Yeah, get up and get out of here and get away from that.
Yes.
And there are some, I will say about 70% of spirit contact, when people want to contact spirits, it is okay. It's usually finishing up business stuff, and it's usually okay. And then there's the percentage that it's not okay. And if it's not, you tell them. You say, well, they're not ready yet, or they're in respite, or this person doesn't want to talk to you, or it would not be healthy to talk to them right now. Yeah. Sometimes you have to give them time to acclimate. And by calling them back, sometimes you get their attention away from where they need to go.
Yes.
And so but I have told people, it's like, girl, girl, get in your car and go. Get out of here. Go, get away from this.
Don't even say that name again out loud.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't need to, and I tell people, don't say that name for a while, because then you're calling them right to you. And because it's an energy vibration.
Sure.
And when you speak their frequency, you're hooking right into them.
Yes.
And so, there are some of them you can't do anything about, and you just have to say, leave it alone. Mm-hmm. It's not healthy. Leave it alone.
Yeah. And
move on.
Yes.
They had their life.
Right.
And they had their chance, and they had their shot.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that shot's over.
Exactly.
And but then there are some times when it does need to be. There are things that need to be said, and people need help and communication, and those are usually very sweet, very kind, very little things. But if it's something gross or mean or just difficult, then I will do what I can do, but I will let them know this is, it's not the healthiest thing for you right now, or for them.
Sure. Exactly.
And then there's always, people when they lose someone due to tragedy or an accident, they aren't ready to let that spirit go. Well, then the spirit's not going to go sometimes because you're keeping them there. Yeah. They're there because I'm worried about you.
Yeah, I want to console you.
And that can keep a person beyond their time, because you can't let them go.
Exactly.
And sometimes by communicating through a psychic, sometimes it will release the person and go, okay, as long as it's all right, I'm all right. As long as they're not suffering. And that is possible. But sometimes, very rarely it turns into a hot mess. And and then too, you can contact a spirit who says, I don't believe in this.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And so, and you have to go, well, this person doesn't believe in psychics. They don't want to talk to me.
So
I've had that happen. I've had to say, they're going, I don't know what this is, but leave me alone. I don't believe in that. And they'll go, yeah, that was them.
There you go. And
I'm like, well.
And you know what? And I imagine, I'm thinking to myself, what if you're one of these dead people who's really content where you're at, and you just like, I don't want any more to do with living or with my family. Hey,
Oh,
handle it.
yeah.
I'm gone.
Oh, and there are people like that. There are people like that. And because their relationships were so contentious
Yeah, yeah.
that they're like, why would I want? There is one at the Reed House down Chattanooga, a beautiful lady who haunts room 311. Well, I went to the seances when I was younger and dumber. And I wanted to communicate with her, but she didn't want to. She was really a tough customer. So I put a table in the hallway, and I communicated with her. And she showed up, and she said, move that damn table out of my way. And I made her talk to me. And she said, she was haunting that room because that's where she lived. It was like you could rent those by the month or year. And she had died there, in the 40s. And she said, and I asked her about, anyone else she could see. She says, I didn't like them when I was alive. Why do I want to be around them when I'm dead?
Exactly.
And she had her own thing going. She's like, when I come here, this is my private space. I don't want you or anyone else here. And why the hell would I want those people that I knew here in my hair?
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever heard that, and it was the first time I'd ever been cussed out by a spirit. Because I won't say, what she said, but she cussed me out.
Well,
and
you know what? Because some people think, some of these ghosts are just dying to communicate, like if a medium or psychic, and you'd be surprised. Some it's like you said, just go away, leave me alone.
Oh no! I mean, I've had no. There are some that are like, get the hell out of here. Get over yourself, Mary. And you're like, okie dokie.
Sure. People don't realize that those personalities. If you were, some people is like, let me do my thing and just go away. No, I don't want to talk to you. I don't care if you can communicate with me. I don't have anything to say. Be on your way.
Oh yeah, it's like, don't bother me. Get away from me, you pervert. And it's like, what are you doing? Yes. And you have to, get up and go and leave them alone. Well, I do. I'm like, well. But I have met a few that were tough customers, and she was a tough customer, and very pretty, but boy, she had a potty mouth, and she just didn't want to be bothered, and she's still there. They had to turn the room into a storage room. Because they would come in, and when she showed up, she would show up and scare people to get them out of her room.
Yeah, she's like, all right, I know how to do this. Hold on.
she comes in the doorway and would stand there and look at them.
What?
And there was one story of a guy who worked there who said he was sitting there, nobody was in the room, he was watching football. And he said, well, he looked up, and this woman was standing inside the door. And he thought she wanted to know about the football game, and he started talking to her. Then he realized she looked real old-fashioned. Then he realized she wasn't real, and he had to go around her to get out the door. And when I was there, he would not come in that room. He was too terrified to come in that room. But she just showed up, and she sat solid. To where, but when she wants her room, it's hers. She's like, it's mine, get out. And she didn't hurt anybody, but, she's just a tough customer. And all she had to do is show up. And so now they turned it into a storage room so that nobody gets that experience.
Happy compromise, and you got your room.
Yeah. Now people pay to go.
Oh yeah, I was about to say, I'm sure they probably have requests like, we want the haunted room.
Oh yeah, you have to ask for that room, but you can rent it, but it's mostly it's not rented to regular people because she scares the crap out of them.
Yeah, they don't want anybody to come tearing out of there like.
No, and they have one guy show up. Wearing his boxer shorts and his cowboy boots. He came running down to the thing and said, get my car, get me out of here. And they had to send someone up to get his bag.
Yeah, it's like, by the way, get somebody up there to pack my stuff because I'm not going back up.
Oh yeah, no. And like I said, she wouldn't hurt anybody. She just is a tough customer. She just scares them.
Yeah.
And but you know, she was a character, and I learned a lot from that. I went, well, you know, ghosts are not just one certain way, or they're not flat. They're very
No, I've heard that some of them
very involved.
they're mistaken. Sometimes people mistake them as reenactors
Oh, yeah.
or even tour guides or docents because they're that solid looking.
They're that solid. When I worked at the metaphysical store, the lady who owned it, her son had killed himself, and she backed her store. She got her store space with the cemetery behind it that he was buried in. And so to say that we had a little bit of activity was, you know, is kind of going. But one day I was sitting there, and this guy comes in, good looking, tall guy, tanned, dressed, you know, dressed a certain way that I really didn't pay a lot of attention to at the moment. But he came in the door, opened the door, came in, and started looking around. I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "No, I'm just going to look." And there was a counter with jewelry. People would go and bend down at the end of the register table, and they would bend down there and look at the jewelry. So he said, if you need help, just let me know. And about 15 minutes later, he hadn't gotten back up, so I thought, well, I'll go check on him. So I got up, went over there, and he was gone. There was nobody in the store. The back door goes to the cemetery, but it was closed. And I searched everywhere. There was nobody. He could not have gotten up and got out the door without me seeing him because, I mean, there was nobody else in the store. And then I started thinking about, well, he was dressed the way I was dressed. We dressed in the 70s, you know, with dark siders and all this preppy look kind of crap. And he was just a spirit who came in. But until I found that out later, I didn't know that he was a spirit. He came in the door. He came in the door. And and I was like, oh, holy moly. But I didn't know. You know, and some people call those lip keys. I think is how they say it. They're kind of like, they're very solid. They'll talk to you. And you'll see them mostly in cemeteries. You can have a conversation with them. And I had a conversation with him. I mean, he was just in there looking.
It was like, where did he go?
Yeah, where did he go? And then when I started thinking about it, I was going, he was dressed like we did 20, 30 years later, you know, before. And when you get to be this age, you've seen a few decades of change. And, you know, because I remember, you know, the 60s. So, you know, I mean, the mod look. And, but he was dressed like we were in the 70s. And he was, like I said, he just looked like a regular guy came out from the boat.
And you're like, unless this guy went through a secret trapdoor I don't know about. That was a ghost.
Yeah, well, believe me, there wasn't. And when I looked, I mean, because there was a little storeroom, I thought, well, maybe he's in the storeroom, you know. Yeah, no. Everything was closed. But like I said, we were backed up to the cemetery where her son was buried. So sometimes she would get weird stuff like that. But he was just like anybody you'd see on the street.
Right.
And I went, wow. You know, he didn't seem disturbed or anything. He just was curious.
Exactly.
And and they're very, you know, like I said, the one that was here that I had to chase off, it was very real. You know, you see them and they're just as solid as you are. And sometimes, and that can be very disorienting for living people. And but it's fun, you know. I mean, it's very interesting to investigate and look at and do. But it's also, you know, you're dealing with people with problems sometimes. These spirits, they're people with issues.
Yes. And
I try to treat them with respect, but I also know that, you know, it can be very tricky and very dicey, and you just try to be the professional.
Right. Well, so, I think that, you know, the same caution that you have when you're alive with strangers who you really don't know much about them, You have to
Yes.
kind of treat the dead as in the spirits of ghosts, maybe people that are not discarnate or somebody that's not gone off peacefully. You gotta have that certain amount of caution.
Yes.
Same way.
Oh yeah, you do. And then most of them are harmless. You know, the majority are harmless. And it's, you know, when you get into a place where where they are, when you have something that's malignant, that's where you have to deal with it totally differently. Because, like I said, if your aura is not in good order,
Sure.
because that's your CAT scan, but it also is your energy field. And if you have a weakness in your energy field, and you have something that is hungry and needs to be fed,
Right.
and it can access your energy and can just eat, there's a meal that's like going to the Sonic hamburger place, and they can infect your system. Sometimes they will.
Sure.
So, and that's people who go and do investigations and stuff like that. A lot of them go in without any preparation and then get sick from being around these things. And I always tell people, always before you go, always reset your aura, always do a little salt bath or anything.
Exactly.
To make it, to strengthen up your energy before you're going to fool with something that is nothing but energy. Because if they are attracted to your energy sphere,
Right.
You know, if you're putting out a meal, you're feeding it. So.
Oh yeah. Exactly.
And a lot of people who go to cemeteries sometimes will come home with a little something that will stay around a few days, and because they had no protection, it just hooked onto them and and then there are some that go a little further, you know. So
it depends. It depends. It's almost like sometimes also a question of like attract like.
Yeah.
People don't realize how potent that is as far as attracting a certain type of entity that aligns with you.
Yes. Well, we call it throbbing. The old spirits used to call it throbbing.
Okay.
If their frequency is at the same frequency you're putting out, they throb to your vibration. So they can, if they are at the same frequency and can match your frequency, then they can access your frequency.
Right.
And so they call it throbbing. And if they throb at the same thing, they can just go right on in. And doesn't mean they can stay there forever, but if they want to, or they can get around you and they can access your energy, then they will. But if they can match your frequency, they can access. It's like someone online accessing your codes.
Right.
And then they can download your information from online. Same thing.
Wow. See, a lot of people are never aware of those things.
New. And when I was younger, before we had the computers and I mean, there was a time before computers.
Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't believe it,
and
but
before the internet, and before all this. But when I started using the internet, I go, well, really, the universe. This is based like what the universe is. You have all of this information, little icons of information. If you click on it, you go open up information, and you have viruses, and you have, you know, it's all energy stuff and frequencies, and you know, but it taught me to really watch my aura and my frequencies, and before I go into something, doing preparation, because a lot of people don't prepare when they go ghost hunting, and they go in these places and, you know, expose themselves to other energy sources that are, you know, assessing their system.
Or
And
physically, if people don't realize, if you're sick or you're exhausted, sometimes you got to really even be careful on going on investigations, because
Yes.
physically you're not, you're tired. Your defenses are down.
Your defenses are down, and drinking
Oh yeah.
and drugging.
Oh yeah. Big time. That.
So a problem that I had with two groups I went with, they would start, we would be ghost hunting, and they would start making sexual jokes and stuff like that. I said, don't do that. You're going to attract something. If you're sitting here, you're putting out a sexual frequency. You're going to get something sexual back.
Yes.
And and they just would go ho 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 ho. And I thought, well, ha 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 ha, you.
Yeah.
You don't do it. You don't. When you go in as the viewer. You don't go in giving access to anything. I mean, that you don't want. Because if there's something out there looking for specific things, then you're putting out that frequency and that vibration. Then they go, oh, right there.
Yes.
And then they wonder why they have problems.
Oh yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
But it's all about techniques, and a lot of people don't think about that.
Absolutely not. Well, anyway, Mark, thank you so much for spending this time with me. It has been absolutely wonderful. And for my podcast listeners, what is your website? Even though I am going to include it in the credits of the show,
right now my ghost tour website I had is down right now until I'm going to do a pay-per-view ghost tour online.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yes, so the website is down. But if people want to contact me, they can look me up on Facebook. Just look up Chattanooga Chills or Mark Fults, either way.
Okay.
And you can contact me, look at that stuff. And my books are on Amazon. Just put in Mark Fults, Fults. And if you have looked at, just contact me on Facebook, because I do. People who call me and have problems and stuff. Since I moved to Florida, I don't get to travel around a whole lot, but I don't necessarily have to be there to assess the situation.
I think that's fascinating what you're talking about, doing a virtual ghost tour. That's great.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to do. Well, it won't be because I'm so computer illiterate. But it will be like it's kind of a slideshow, but it'll be me talking over and doing the tour was really good.
Okay.
But of course I had to move here. So, but I'm going to also be doing a tour since I live in Milton, Florida. I'm going to do one for Milton, and I'm going to do one for Pensacola.
Okay.
And I'm just going to put them on as pay-per-views. And then anyone from Japan can go on that tour, look at the tour and see it.
That is a great idea.
And then you don't have to have a walking tour, because that actually is a lot to do. But if people want to go on that, then eventually I can do one.
Yes.
But that's, I'm aiming at doing all that. I'm getting that all together. So.
Oh well, good luck on that.
So,
good luck on that.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much, Marley, for having me on here.
No, absolutely, it has been my pleasure, and I want to wish you again the best of luck on your new books and your new project. Okay.
Oh, and good luck to you. And I hope this conversation wasn't too out there for people.
No, not at all. Not at all. Far from it. It was so enjoyable. And again, thank you so much. Take care.
Oh, well, you too, and anytime.
Bye-bye.
So you have a good night.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, guys, isn't he great? Wow. I didn't know he had moved down to Florida. I didn't know that. Wow. So, well, as you can tell, I mean, he's an author, which, let me tell you something, that angle about necromancy and necrophilia, and the worst part is, this is not made up. This is real. This is real. He's looking at cases, well, this one that he's got that book about, The Darkest Corner, this is recent. This is maybe, 7 or 8 years ago? And that's one of those horrifying things, you know, that sometimes you read a fiction book and it's horrifying and you're thinking at the end, oh well, just like a horror movie, oh, it's just a movie, it's just made up. But no, it's not made up. It's absolutely true. And it's disturbing to think that there's people out there that do this. And I'm sure that for all the ones that are ever known about or caught or whatever, discovered, how many others are there out there that just they never get around? And again, you know, I want to say, and I understand what he's saying, that you're thinking, okay, along the way, nobody caught on that there was. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that there's people that are peculiar and eccentric, and there's nothing wrong with that. But somewhere along the line, somebody, at least the people very close to this person, have to realize there's something really, really off, disturbingly off about my son, my brother, my friend, my cousin, my uncle, whatever. But like you said, if people step away from this because they don't want to be the one that points it out or does something. And that's a problem because, you know, the only thing I can say is that in this case, what he was describing was this person that didn't kill any of these children. But think about it. Can you imagine if you're a parent and you've buried your child's body, having to deal with a heartache beyond the death of your child, finding out that somebody's desecrated their grave and did that to them? And then telling the parent, oh, you left them in the dark and see that, in a way, if you think about it, yeah, you could say the guy was really crazy. But at the same time, that's really torturing a parent or a loved one who maybe has to relive that loss all over again. And there's a lot of people out there that, some of them I want to say, and then there's the other, and as a matter of fact, I wrote a little bit about it in the book that I just released called Supernatural Safety, which has to do with necromancy and the use of dead and for magical and ritual purposes. And like he said, I said, you know, why do you think that sometimes people steal not only corpses or bones? And I mean, there's even some stuff with graveyard dirt. But nowadays, you can order bones legally, human bones, but that's not what they want. Whoever's a necromancer doesn't want the bone per se that's stripped of the animus or the spirit of whoever that belonged to. That's why they go into graveyards and cemeteries and they disinter. And as a matter of fact, I read like maybe a month ago that this happened in India, and a man, I guess they do a lot of traveling on trains there, and he was traveling on a line that would take him to the border, I want to say, of Tibet and China. And he was caught with I don't know how many human bones and how many human skulls. And apparently there's a big black market for this. And everybody's thinking, what do you mean, for like medical purposes? And no. To use for black magic and necromancy. And he was busted, you know, doing this and you know, obviously this happens when they go and they desecrate the graves. They desecrate the graves. And so, I mean, besides the necrophilia part, there is a lot of use of skeletons for use in dark rituals. Yes, a lot of it is there. And obviously, the other side of that is, you know, if there's no demand, you don't need to supply. There's the obviously money to be made, because I don't know how much they were charging, but I'm sure it was quite, some type of money, because let's face it, in most cultures, this is forbidden or taboo, that you take the remains of a deceased person. Either the government doesn't allow you, there's a law against it, or even the family mostly will be outraged. Because again, this is very different from somebody giving their body up for science. I myself, I've taken university courses where I've handled bodies of people that volunteered. In other words, they gave their bodies for science, for scientific purposes. And the bodies, basically you had like a brief history of this person, what their age was, what they died of, what their life was like. And part of, and I don't mean to wig anybody up, but part of the body was partially dissected. For example, let's say somebody that was a smoker, so you could look at the lungs to see what the effect of smoking was. Okay, that's several, but again, getting back to the original thing, this is different when you give your body over for science, or for people that, let's say, do donate their organs. That's totally different. This is the person consciously making a choice to give their body either to benefit science or to help a living human being. There's desecration of a body or a grave. No. And I mean, and that's just from the physical aspect, depending, I don't know, everybody has different spiritual beliefs, whatever. But it's, if you look at it even from a spiritual angle, like you're taking the body or the bones of my family member, loved one, whatever, and you're going to try to bind their spirit for use in whatever you're working. Yeah, I mean, that's a deep, deep rabbit hole, folks. Let me see. I'm going to see if I can get somebody on here to talk about that, because there's like I said, I'm sure we've all heard. I mean, even here in South Florida, every once in a while, they have found people, they've stopped people at customs trying to bring in body, skeletons and skulls and stuff like that. That's happened here. And again, same thing in cemeteries, that a lot of people think of, what people vandalize cemeteries as well. Well, because they're going in there, maybe they're knocking over headstones, or teenagers doing stupid stuff, or spray painting, but there's a whole other set of desecration that takes place, because these are people going in there to dig up bodies or bones, okay, things like that. And by the way, here in the United States, there's not all the time, because you're not forced to embalm a body to bury it. But a lot of these countries, they don't go through what they go here of the embalming fluid or nothing. People die, and basically they're washed maybe and dressed or put in a sheet, and they're buried. So, it's a very disturbing, but it's more common, unfortunately, than people think. But anyway, guys, I hope you like the show. I know I love speaking to Mark. I've got a huge list of super interesting guests coming on for 2019, all of which I know you guys are really, really, really going to enjoy. Please don't forget to send me your stories to MiamiGhostChronicles.com at Submit Your Story tabs. I'm on all the social medias. There's also a podcast version of the show that you can find on all the major podcast platforms like iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify. I'm on all of those. And you can go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com. You can find either the actual MP3 file to download of the show, a link to the YouTube show, or a link to a specific podcast platform. If that's the one, let's say, that you usually use to listen to podcasts, I have direct links to that platform that will take you into all the show episodes there. So, again, I'm hoping to put together a show here for with my True Believer story. I'm still working out the getting a live show to bring in call-in guests, live guests. But like I said, that I need somebody more in the background to coordinate that with me. I'm still working it out. What can I say? The holidays got in the way, plus the writing of this last book of supernatural safety also got in the way, which, by the way, you can find links to purchasing it on MiamiGhostChronicles.com and on Amazon, and probably maybe for Valentine's Day I'm going to be giving them away, a couple of them as a giveaway. And you can usually I post that on social media, Facebook, Twitter, when I have one of those giveaways for one of those items, and I'll autograph that for you. So again, guys, thank you so very, very much for being part of my audience. Thank you for sharing this time with me, and I hope you come back every week and catch the new show. And of course, I'm always ready to hear any suggestions that you have as far as subject matter or guests that you would like me to bring on. So till next time, take care.